You won't believe what happened to this guy. So his name was Alex, a student of precision. His small bedroom in a cramped Queens apartment was a sanctuary of copper wire, soldering irons, and half-disassembled motherboards. While other 20-year-olds were chasing influencers or social status, Alex was obsessed with the flow of electrons. He saw beauty in a well-designed circuit, a logical world where every input had a predictable output. People, however, were not logical. They were messy, loud, and often unkind. His only tether to the loud world was Nicholas. Nicholas was a whirlwind of expensive cologne and misplaced energy. They had been friends since childhood, a bond forged when Alex fixed Nicholas's broken PlayStation in the 3rd grade. "You're wasting the best years of your life, Lex," Nicholas said one Friday evening, leaning against the doorframe of Alex's workshop. "There's a rooftop party in Brooklyn tonight. Real people, real music. Not just whatever this hum is." Alex didn't look up from his magnifying glass. "The hum is a vintage amplifier, Nick. It's more honest than anyone you'll meet at that party." "You're afraid of them," Nicholas teased, though his voice held a trace of genuine concern. "You're afraid of modern love. You see one heartbreak on the news and you decide to live like a monk." Alex finally looked up, his expression softening. "I'm not a monk. I just have priorities." Those priorities centered around a small woman with tired eyes and calloused hands. His mother, Elena. She had raised him alone, working double shifts at a dry cleaner, and then taking cleaning jobs at night. Alex remembered nights as a child when the fridge was an empty white cavern, and his mother would tell him she wasn't hungry, just so he could have the last of the pasta. He owed her a life of comfort. Every A on his transcript was a brick in the house he intended to buy her. The steel horse, if engineering was Alex's soul, his motorbike was his spirit. It was a customized 90s cafe racer he had rebuilt from a rusted frame found in a junkyard. On that bike, the shy, stuttering student disappeared. When he kicked the engine into life, the vibration traveled up his spine, grounding him. The Monday of the accident started like any other. The air was thick with the humidity of a New York August. Alex had spent the afternoon in the college lab, perfecting a signal processor. He felt triumphant. He was ahead of his class, and his professor had hinted at an internship at a major aerospace firm. As he rode home, the sun was dipping behind the skyscrapers, casting long, jagged shadows across the asphalt. He was on a quiet stretch of a secondary road, the wind cooling the sweat on his neck. Then came the flash of red. A sedan, swerving erratically to avoid a stray dog, or perhaps just driven by someone blinded by a phone screen, crossed the yellow line. Time didn't slow down like it does in the movies. It shattered. Alex saw the grille of the car, felt the desperate lurch of his handlebars, and then the world became a kaleidoscope of sparks and screaming metal. The impact threw him clear of the bike. He felt a sickening weightlessness before the world turned into a dull roar of impact. He tumbled into a drainage ditch, shielded by a patch of overgrown weeds and soft earth. For a long time, there was only the sound of his own ragged breathing and the ticking of a cooling engine nearby. People stopped. He heard voices, distant, panicked. "Is he dead? Don't touch him. Call 911. I'm not getting involved. Look at all that blood." The indifference of the city stung more than the broken ribs. They stood in a circle of cowardice, watching him bleed into the dirt. Then, the clouds parted. A face appeared above him. It wasn't the face of a bystander, it was the face of an angel. Her hair was a halo of gold in the dying light, and her eyes were wide with a fierce, protective kindness. "Can you hear me?" she asked. Her voice was steady, cutting through the fog of his concussion. "Who?" Alex coughed, the metallic taste of blood filling his mouth. "Who are you?" "My name is Maya," she whispered, already sliding her arms under his shoulders. "I've got you. I'm not leaving you here." She didn't wait for the sirens that were still minutes away. With a strength that defied her slight frame, she dragged him to her car, a sleek, expensive-looking vehicle that smelled of vanilla and expensive leather. As she drove, she kept talking to him, forcing him to stay awake, her hand occasionally reaching back to squeeze his shoulder. "Stay with me, Alex. You have a beautiful bike. You have to fix it, remember? They missed me. The ghost of a savior." The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. When Alex finally stabilized, his mother was there, her face a mask of agony that only a parent can wear. "The girl!" Alex rasped the next morning. "Where's Maya?" "The doctor said a young woman brought you in," Elena said, wiping his brow. "She stayed until she knew you were in surgery. Then she left. She didn't leave a number, Alex. Just a name." In the weeks that followed, Alex became obsessed. He returned to the hospital 3 times limping on a cane, pleading with the receptionists. He checked social media, searched every Maya in the tri-state area, but it was like searching for a single drop of water in the ocean. He was different now. The motorbike sat in the garage, a mangled skeleton of chrome. He couldn't bring himself to touch it. The sound of a revving engine now made his hands shake. He began to walk or take the bus with Nicholas, his eyes always scanning the sidewalks for a flash of blonde hair or a certain gait. "She was a good Samaritan, Lex," Nicholas said as they walked to the library 3 months later. "Some people are just born with a surplus of kindness. They do the deed and they vanish." "Let it go." "I can't," Alex said. "She saved my life when everyone else just watched." That afternoon, near a high-end supermarket in a neighborhood Alex usually avoided, he saw it. A bright red car, the same model that had carried him to safety. A woman stepped out, her movements graceful and familiar. Alex's heart didn't just beat. It hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He approached her, his voice catching in his throat. "Maya?" She turned. The recognition was instant. A smile spread across her face, not a polite smile, but a warm, radiant one that seemed to light up the gray New York afternoon. "The boy from the ditch," she said softly. "You're walking." "You're okay." "I spent 3 months looking for you," Alex said, his shyness forgotten in the rush of adrenaline. "Why did you leave?" "I didn't want to be a burden," she said, tucking a lock of hair behind her ear. "The hospital is for family." "I was just a stranger." "You weren't a stranger," Alex replied. "You were everything. The gilded illusion, Maya was everything Alex wasn't. She was wealthy, confident, and seemed to float through life without the burden of doing the math. They began to spend every waking moment together. Alex's engineering textbooks gathered dust. The A's turned into C's, then D's. "Alex, your professor called," his mother said one evening, her voice trembling. "He says you missed the midterm. He says you're failing." "It's fine, Mom," Alex said, his eyes glued to his phone, waiting for a text from Maya. "I'll make it up." "Maya's parents have connections. She says I won't even need the degree if I work for their firm." "You don't know these people, Alex," Elena warned. "You're changing. You don't even look at your circuits anymore." But Alex was intoxicated. Maya took him to her house, a sprawling mansion in a gated community that felt like another planet. The floors were marble, the art was original, and the silence was expensive. However, there were cracks. Whenever Alex asked about her parents, Maya would provide vague, rehearsed answers. "They're in Europe," or "They're very private." And then there was the room. The end of the second-floor hallway was a heavy oak door. Maya kept it locked. "The AC unit in there is ancient," she told him when he noticed it. "It leaks and it's sweltering. I don't want you seeing the mess." "Maya, I'm an engineer," Alex laughed. "Let me fix it for you. It'll take 10 minutes. The transformation was instantaneous. Her face went from sweet to feral. "I said no! Stay out of my private spaces, Alex. Don't be so controlling." He backed away, shocked. She apologized moments later, crying and blaming the stress of her lonely life, and Alex, ever the loving, caring person, forgave her instantly. He felt guilty for even asking. The mask falls, the end didn't come with a bang, but with a cold realization. Maya stopped answering his calls for 3 days. Panicked, thinking she had been in an accident like his own, Alex rushed to the mansion. He saw a moving truck outside. He pounded on the door. A man opened it. He was older, perhaps in his late 30s, wearing an expensive suit and looking exhausted but happy to be home. "Can I help you, kid?" the man asked. I'm looking for Maya," Alex stammered. The man frowned. "Maya? No one by that name lives here." I'm David. I've lived here for 5 years. Alex felt the world tilt. But she's blonde, kind eyes. She said her parents owned this place. Just then, the woman Alex knew as Maya walked into the foyer. She was wearing a silk robe, holding a glass of wine. She froze for a split second, her eyes darting between the two men. Hannah, honey, David said, turning to her. This kid says he's looking for a Maya. Is she one of the decorators? The girl Hannah didn't blink. She walked forward with a cold, aristocratic grace. She looked at Alex as if he were a bug she had considered stepping on, but decided wasn't worth the mess on her shoe. Oh, she said, her voice devoid of the warmth that had sustained Alex for months. You must be the technician from the AC company. I told you we didn't need the repair anymore. My husband is back from his business trip now, so we're fine. You can leave. Alex's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked past her, into the house. The door to the forbidden room was open. He saw what was inside. It wasn't a broken AC. It was a study. The walls were covered in photos of David and Hannah, their wedding, their vacations, their life. He had been a toy. A project for a bored, wealthy woman whose husband traveled too much. She hadn't saved him because she was a loving, caring person. She had saved him because she wanted to see if she could own something so pure, so simple, and so easily broken. The cold forge. The note arrived by courier that evening. Thanks for the fun, Alex. You were a sweet distraction while the house was empty. My husband is back for good now, so please don't come around. I hope you find a nice girl your own age. Have a nice life. Alex sat in his dark workshop. His mother was in the kitchen, crying quietly because she knew her son was destroyed. He looked at the mangled motorbike in the corner. He looked at the soldering iron, cold and unused. He picked up a mirror. The boy who loved circuits was gone. The boy who believed that kindness was a currency was dead. In his place was someone with eyes like flint. He realized then that the world didn't run on electrons or logic. It ran on power and deception. He had been loving and caring, and it had cost him his education, his bike, his pride, and his mother's peace of mind. He reached out and picked up a heavy wrench. With a slow, deliberate motion, he began to work on the bike. But he wasn't fixing the engine to ride it. He was stripping the parts, sharpening the metal, turning the machine into something else. He thought of Hannah, or Maya, or whoever the ghost was. He thought of her husband. He thought of the circle of people who had watched him bleed in the ditch. The loving, caring people. Alex whispered to the empty room. His voice was a new sound, low, jagged, and devoid of hope. They're the easiest ones to unalive. He didn't want revenge in a simple way. He was an engineer, after all. He knew how to build a system that would fail slowly, painfully, and inevitably. He picked up his phone and began to type, his fingers steady. He knew David's name now. He knew where he worked. He knew the structural weaknesses of their perfect life. The lights of New York flickered outside, but for the first time in his life, Alex wasn't afraid of the noise. He was the noise. He prepared for a tough revenge. Don't miss part 2. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to see what happens next.